Use your powers for evil.
Your evil is mine.
Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm Charles Skaggs, and of course, in the TARDIS, once again, my partner in time, everybody's favorite partner in time, Jesse Jackson.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jesse.
I'm excited to be here. You know what? I'm feeling fantastic.
Are you feeling fantastic?
I am, and you know what? So are you. You are fantastic, too.
Well, thank you, and so are you. You're fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
Obviously, we're going to be talking about the Ninth Doctor today. Here at episode 96 of Next Stop Everywhere, getting close to 100.
Yes, indeed.
It's not too far off in the future, or is it past? It's hard to tell with us.
It is. It's very timey-wimey.
Exactly. Tonight we're going to talk about the final two-part story from the Christopher Eccleston era, Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways.
Yes.
And this is obviously a big deal back in 2005 because this features the very first regeneration in the new era.
Yes.
So looking forward to talking about this. This was written, of course, by Russell T. Davies and directed by Joe Ahern. And I'm dying to know what you thought of this one.
You know, I had not ever gone back and seen this. You know, I've picked certain Eccleston areas.
You've never rewatched this?
Yeah, I've never had.
Wow.
And I am struck again how much the more you watch Doctor Who, the more you appreciate and really go. I find Eccleston so enjoyable as a Doctor. You know, my first time around, he was the first, episode I watched after watching a couple of Torchwood episodes.
Right.
And, and immediately fell in love with David Tennant. You know, I'm binge watching Doctor Who. And as I go back, I used to not understand, and I think we've had this discussion before, understanding anyone how Eccleston's their Doctor. I just don't get that. But the more I watch, the more I appreciate that. And really, and I know we are repeating ourselves now, it isn't a tragedy like, Puerto Rico or earthquakes, but having only one season of him as a Doctor is a Doctor Who tragedy, because I really think he was something pretty special.
It just feels like lost potential.
Yes, that's a better way of putting it.
I think if we had at least one more season with Eccleston, it wouldn't be nearly as jarring, but we didn't.
Right.
It was just, especially with the show having just come back.
Yeah.
After such a long hiatus.
Yeah.
And actually, technically two, if you count the TV movie in 1996.
Right.
So, yeah, it was such a blow. And of course, the announcement comes like right when the show's premiering.
Yeah, from our perspective.
You're like, because back in 2005 when Rose first aired, here in the States, we were just like, wait, he's already leaving? What? And it made no sense to us.
The other thing I got to this, and I'm probably jumping ahead of your agenda, is how much I loved Captain Jack interacting with the Doctor. I loved that character. I loved he was good with Tennant, but there was just something about him, Rose, and Eccleston is just a really fun TARDIS. That would be
it was a great dynamic, wasn't it?
That would be a fun TARDIS to hang out with. You know, like if you could go a trip, if you didn't die, that would be a good trio to hang out with.
Well, I think Jack balances Rose's mopiness sometimes.
Yeah.
And her, I don't want to say childishness, but just her youth and a bit of a naivete.
Yes.
And because Jack is he's from the future, he's from the 51st century, he knows more about what's going on. He doesn't, he can be the exposition guy instead of the doctor a lot of times. And he was just, he's so outgoing and cheeky, and he brings a nice bit of humor against that.
Yeah, so. Always flirting, and that may make our favorite lines, quotations, but also just as much flirty with Rose and the Doctor equal. It is just, he truly is just this character of joy. And I've been lucky enough to be at Q&As with the actor, and he has that energy and that joy with him.
I totally agree. I've seen him twice as well.
Yeah, and John Barrowman is just really nice.
If you have the opportunity to go to a panel, either at a comic convention or a Doctor Who convention, with Barrowman at it, definitely go.
Yeah.
Not always maybe for the little kids.
Yes, true, but
because he is a little edgy, but it's totally worth it.
Absolutely.
Totally worth it.
So let us jump back in the TARDIS, or
yes.
I would call the Wayback Machine if it wasn't a Doctor Who podcast.
Yeah, we're not exactly doing Mr. Peabody and Sherman.
No,
here.
We're not. Though, you know what? I would definitely see a Mr. Peabody and Sherman Doctor Who crossover. Get working on that, fan fiction people.
There you go. I would think Kanan and Mr. Peabody would be a natural.
Oh, gosh, that would be awesome. So tell me...
yes.
I recognized at least one face in this episode. So why don't you give us a little bit of summary, as you always do. You've already told us the writer and director,
right.
But significant guest stars, because one I recognized and I had to look up because I know this guy.
Right. Okay. Well, let's see if he's in the list that I have.
Yes.
First, obviously, the people that I do want to give shout-outs to in this cast for this story are the reality TV show hosts from the UK, doing the voices of androids here in this kind of like outer space version of British reality television.
Yes.
And so we have Davina McCall as the Davino droid, and she is from Big Brother UK. So she's the host of the Big Brother room where the Ninth Doctor is kept.
Right.
In this story, at the beginning of the story.
Didn't recognize her because, yes.
Well, they're playing androids, right. So yeah. And then we, of course, have Anne Robinson, who a little more familiar to U.S. audiences because she was on The Weakest Link.
Yes. And
she does the voice of the android, and Anne Robinson did The Weakest Link over here in the U.S. as well.
Yes, that one I recognized. I not only recognized, I recognized all the reality settings, right. But with her, I said, okay, that's got to be the actual actress doing the voice, which was amazing. Yeah,
and apparently, in a little side note, apparently they didn't think that Anne Robinson would do this voice because maybe they thought that it would be too much of an insult to her.
Okay.
But apparently she just rolled right along with it because they were ready to go with a guest actress, and they got her instead. So just a little trivia bit there. And then Trini Woodall and Susanna Constantine as the androids Trin E and Zuzana, and they're from the British reality series What Not to Wear, and of course that's where Jack ends up in a rather extreme fashion alteration show.
Your ratings just went up, ladies.
Yeah. Hey, don't steal my quote.
Okay.
But and then so other actors in this of notable, I think, Patterson Joseph, who plays Roderick, and he is the weakest link contestant that is really desperate to stay alive, or really desperate for that money, and is willing in a heartbeat to throw Rose under the bus just so he can stay alive and get his money, only to, of course, meet his expected end of doom at the hands of the Daleks.
Yes.
He's notable because he was one of the rumored actors for the 11th Doctor role that ended up going to Matt Smith. Bleeding Cool by Rich Johnston, the comics and sci-fi news site, was really betting on Patterson Joseph, and everybody seemed to think, oh, it's Patterson Joseph, and I just laughed hard when it turned out to be somebody that wasn't Patterson Joseph.
Yes.
So I thought that was great. He played the Marquis de Carabas in Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere, the BBC miniseries adaptation. So he's a really notable character in that. And he was also Holy Wayne Gilchrist on The Leftovers, the HBO series.
Yeah, that's what I recognized him from. I recognized his face. And I could have swore he had been in Doctor Who again, but he had not been. But yes, I'd recognized him from The Leftovers. A great character actor. He was actually, I thought he was really good in this. Even though he was sneaky, I thought he played it really well.
And he's also in the U.S. series Timeless recently.
Yes, and he's good in that. I agree. So, he's been really good in Timeless. Yeah,
so pretty notable actor there. An actor named Dominic Burgess, who played Agarax, which was one of the contestants at the Weakest Link sequences. He was in Batman Begins and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I thought was rather interesting.
Okay.
And another contestant, Sebastian Armesto, as Broth. He was in The Force Awakens and Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides.
Okay,
so
very nice.
Just kind of notable. And then, of course, we have the return of Noel Clarke as Nikki Smith and Camille Coduri as Jackie Tyler. So,
and she was not nearly as irritating this time.
Well, she didn't have a lot of scenes, but she does have that great moment where she supplies Mickey with his big yellow truck to save the world.
Yes, absolutely nice.
Yep, so that was great. So yeah, some notable people in this two-parter that have obviously gone on to bigger and better things since this episode, or these two episodes. So, okay, let's dive right into the main topics.
Okay.
And the first topic I have is Riders on the Storm. And that's, of course, referring to the oncoming storm himself, the Ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston, and in his final two-part story, and also his interactions with the Daleks, because obviously this Doctor, fresh out of the Time War, still has some very serious issues concerning the Daleks that come to the forefront here.
Yes. I don't know if where you're planning to go on your reverse polarity.
Yes.
But I immediately, and I did not have time because for those a little behind the scenes, I'm back from my 40th high school reunion was the weekend as we recorded this, so I had to leave Friday, so I didn't get. But the Eccleston episode Dalek, I really felt like watching again after watching this. Yeah,
because what it does, it's almost like a prelude to
it is, and it is wonderful to see, especially if you think of people like myself who may recognize the Daleks a little bit, but isn't a classic Whovian. That was a great way to introduce them, and then to see them in this episode was great. I've already talked a little bit. I loved Eccleston this time more than I did the first time.
Right.
It just was so great to see him. His, these two episodes give you almost everything you want in a traditional Doctor Who episode. You're fighting a really strong villain. His back's against the wall. He has great companions, and he gives a couple of great speeches about, my back's against the wall. And, the joke is, right, like when you're watching a sports game, I don't know if, Charles, you guys do this, but like with the Browns or the Cowboys or someone, when they're down by a couple of touchdowns, we've got
a couple touchdowns. I would be happy if the Browns were only down by a couple touchdowns.
Like we got them right where we want them. And, and the doctor just kind of does that. By the way, my high school lost their homecoming game on Friday night, 70-0.
Ouch.
Yes. It was like 50-something at halftime.
Oh.
It was the number one state. Arcadia is the number one high school in Louisiana. And you're like, who thought that would be a good game to do for homecoming? So, yes, the final score was 70-0.
God, yes. Ouch.
Yes.
Maybe it was just one of those things where they were just rotating the schedule around, and it was just happened that time up.
Yes, absolutely.
Luck of the draw.
Yeah.
I love the Eccleston with this, and the Daleks, and speaking from my perspective after seeing these the Daleks here now in the modern era in 2005.
Yeah.
It was such an amazing thing to finally see the Dalek style invasions we've envisioned in our heads as fans, because the special effects now with CGI have finally caught up, so that now we can show all these swarms of Daleks
and they're
hurtling through space, and they're just
floating, and
they're almost like flocks of birds as they're floating through space. It was just so impressive, and you got all kinds of saucers, and just this big epic special effects extravaganza that longtime Whovians like myself just wanted to see finally on on TV.
What kind of going back a little bit, I've shared my impression, but how about you? Now, you obviously started a little bit with Baker, but then Davison became your doctor. You went through Colin Baker, and you went through Sylvester McCoy. I'm sure you're one of the few people that actually watched the Fox movie, excited about it.
I did. I actually recorded it, live as I watched it.
What was your feeling when you finally got a chance to see this reboot? What was your feelings about Eccleston as a doctor?
I thought he was a great doctor, and I felt like, especially I thought he found I really enjoyed those first few episodes, with the Rose, the end of the world, and the Unquiet Dead.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed those. Did not enjoy the Aliens of London 2-parter with what do you call it? Those, I can't believe I'm blanking on the names. Oh, the Slitheen.
Okay.
And so that was a letdown. But then Dalek came around, and Daleks was just like, wow, that was just such a great story. And then we had the Long Game, which was okay. And then we had this killer 2-parter, The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances, which was, as far as I was concerned, the best story of the season.
Yeah.
And then Boomtown, and then and then this 2-parter. I thought it was just such a great season, and like obviously one of the best seasons, like Doctor Who had seen it in forever.
Yeah.
And so that I just was great, but it was bittersweet because I knew all along as I watched this again that Eccleston was leaving.
Right.
So as a result, it was so hard for me to get attached to him because I knew he was leaving. So I'm just like, well, why should I be emotionally invested in this doctor as much? I mean, he's cool.
Yeah.
And I had nothing against him, but it was just it just was hard to get that attachment. And I think that's probably why, even if for fans that started with Eccleston, that they ended up latching on to Tennant because Tennant was obviously around longer and he could form more of a bond with his doctor.
Now, did you already know Tennant was going to be the Doctor as you were watching Eccleston?
Well, once they made the announcement.
Okay, I didn't know with the timing. Had you already known that before it was shown here in the U.S.?
I mean, this is now 12 years ago, so I'm just kind of running on like my iffy memory at best.
Sure.
But as I recall, the announcement that Tennant was going to take over came like within a week of Eccleston's announcement that he was departing. So, and I wasn't familiar with Tennant, so I wasn't quite sure what to expect.
Yeah.
I tried to do some research because I knew he was in this production called Casanova. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I wasn't really familiar, and I wasn't quite sure what we were going to expect until, of course, the ending in this story,
right?
Where he appears and talks about like new teeth. That's weird.
Yes.
And and all that, and then of course the Christmas invasion, which pretty much like gave you that great first impression of the 10th Doctor.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, with the Doctor here, he's obviously has these resentment issues from the Time War with the Daleks. He's forced with this ethical dilemma in this story that I want to kind of talk about really quickly.
Okay.
The where he comes up with this delta wave emitter generator, and the device is such that it will stop the Daleks, but at the expense of humanity, because apparently the radius is so large that it will just fry the Earth. And so again, the Doctor would be responsible for genocide here, on top of how he feels committing genocide, or so he thinks, as we later find out, on Gallifrey. So he's forced to like, okay, do I not do anything, let the Daleks take over and turn everybody else into Daleks, or do we all die? Yeah. So what did you think about that moral dilemma?
It reminded me, didn't Baker have a similar situation in an earlier episode?
Genesis of the Daleks.
Yeah. Yep. I thought it was very interesting. You brought up a really good point earlier that the Time War is even fresher with him than it is the other, Doctors, though all of them in their own way have played that burden of being a survivor, survivor's guilt. But this one especially, Eccleston, this Ninth Doctor, really, it's fresh. He's the first one since the War Doctor. And so I loved the idea of his dilemma. There will be, and he even talks about there's humanity outside in the universe. Right. So it's not like I'm totally destroying human life. It would just be these humans. And it is similar to America, the U.S. decision to drop a nuclear bomb to end World War II early, where it certainly was horrible, but, the justification is in the long run, less people died. Now, that for the people who died, that's very little comfort, and the people who lost family members. But yeah, I thought that was, once again, the Doctor Who being a little more than just being lost in space. Or, Battle of the, Land of the Giants. Or, this is truly, we are trying to do what the similar that a lot of the original Star Trek tried to do. And for what it's worth, including all the jokes, I think Orville is swinging a little bit for that as well. I mean, with a sense of humor, but I think they're at least trying to make, they are not just doing a funny series. They are trying to do
Right.
something a little depth storytelling and kind of using
Well, I think
science
they're trying
fiction.
I think they're trying to capture those morality issues a little bit.
Yeah.
So we'll see where that goes. But
Yeah.
one other thing I wanted to talk about with the Ninth Doctor in this story, he has another almost companion in the form of Linda with a Y.
Yes.
And he bonds with her pretty early. They seem to have a pretty good relationship. And invites her along. And she kind of is like, yeah, I think I might like to do that. But of course, being an almost companion, she ends up being killed horribly. And a great scene, because if you notice, when the Dalek in the sequence where she's like on this in the top of the Satellite 5, and this Dalek is right outside her window in space. And of course, you can't hear the Dalek because it's outside. But you see the blinking, flashing lights timed with the words "exterminate."
Yes.
And you know exactly what the Dalek is saying as right before it blasts her into death.
Yeah, and
so I thought that was really cool. I just want to mention that real quick.
The worst there's a couple things that you could say are cliches, but are also really dramatic moments. I've only got X amount of days to retirement. Okay,
yeah.
You're gonna die.
Yeah, yep.
And
unless you're Danny Glover.
Yes.
In Lethal Weapon.
Or could you take me with you, Doctor? Good chance you're not going to survive.
Right, exactly.
I liked the actress who played her. I thought it was great. And I do think that at this point, you're thinking, okay, maybe she will get picked up, right. Especially.
And there was that bit with Rose kind of looking at her like, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Like just totally doing the stereotypical, like, I just met you and I hate you.
Yes.
Staring death glares or daggers at poor Linda with a Y. All right. Let's move on to our second topic. And this is Reality Bites.
Okay.
Which is a nod to a 1994 movie starring Winona Ryder. For those of you trivia movie buffs out there. This is Rose and Jack. And Rose, of course, ends up stuck in The Weakest Link, where you have to win to survive. And then Jack, of course, is in the aforementioned What Not to Wear, where with the androids Trin E and Zuzana. So obviously there's a lot of social satire here in these kind of reality show segments. But Rose and Captain Jack, I want you to get your thoughts on how they were in this story.
So, as I've already talked about, it was so great to see Captain Jack again. I just love seeing his interaction, his brashness. He is flirting, his confidence. I felt a little bad for Rose because being from the past, a lot of questions they're asking about pop culture, she would have no idea, so I felt a little bad that she was stuck in this. But it was
a little unfair, but
yes.
Yeah.
I loved, a lot of people love Rose, and to many modern fans, her being the first modern companion, she has a special place in a lot of people's hearts. And
right.
And it was so great to see her in the 50th anniversary. So I'm right there, and you see her charm and her. She's certainly not perfect, but it was good to see them both again. It was. I hate to use the word nostalgia for something that's not that old, but there was this sense of nostalgia for me watching this going, this was so. Picture your favorite band, whoever it is, and if they had not put out a new album in 5 years or 10 years, and all of a sudden they release an album and you go, oh my gosh, it's it's fresh, but it also familiar, and it hits all the right themes. This seems like
or it's kind of a letdown, and you're like, wow,
right.
I kind of, they were way too long kind of thing.
And you could have had that same worry. And with this Doctor Who, it's that they came back with, they aren't a repeating, they aren't just doing a retread. This is new and unique, but they're also kind of hitting all the things that you want in a Doctor Who episode and in a Doctor Who series. So
yeah,
it was great to see both of them. And like I said, I miss Jack especially. Would love to see him. I'd love to see him with Jodie. I just think that would be greatness.
Jodie,
the new Doctor.
Oh, Jodie Whittaker. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
All right.
that
would be great.
Gosh, wouldn't that be just awesome? Yes.
I don't know where my brain was. Obviously, okay. Thank you. Yeah,
well, I got scared all of a sudden, going, did I get the wrong name? Yeah.
No. You got it right.
Yeah.
I'm just apparently I'm having a stroke or something.
No.
This is great. Jack. Yeah, he's obviously he steals a lot of scenes because, hey, it's Barrowman. Of course he's going to steal the scenes.
Yeah.
He gets to walk around most of the second part with a big old gun, and he has it like he gets to stand up on a podium and like kind of do this motivational speech, only to not really have many volunteers help him fight the Daleks. So he's just like, well, hey, as you listen to us, dying, as we're up here, like trying to say, like fight the Daleks because you're too cowardly to help out, which I thought was kind of nice that it wasn't just this noble sacrifice on his part. It was just more the like, hey, I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do, but kind of shame on you guys for being so cowardly and hiding out here and
Absolutely,
not helping out.
Yeah.
So he calls them out. Which I thought was interesting. Rose, of course, she ends up having to be tricked by the Doctor because the Doctor's wanting to protect her from the delta wave emitter in case he ends up using it. So he sends her back in the TARDIS, and she's very she's angry. She's just like hurt and betrayed. And then we get introduced to that the emergency, kind of like the emergency medical hologram on Star Trek Voyager.
Yes.
What the what do you call it? The emergency program 1.
Right.
And she's heartbroken because this is essentially like this hologram is saying, well, look, I'm probably dead already, and she's having to cope with that. So what did you think about that sequence?
I thought it was pretty good. I understand, often the Doctor can be callous toward life, but not about his, not with his companions. I do believe he tries to take care of those which he can.
Especially Rose, because he cares about her.
Yes.
And he said he made a promise to Jackie to return her safely.
Right. So, I absolutely understand.
Jackie's obviously thrilled because she thinks that he did the right thing.
Yeah, and there is that. There is a little bit of the arrogance of the Doctor. He means well, but he is putting his own thoughts and feelings and not asking for Rose's input, right?
Right.
And that's, I think, where Rose gets mad, and rightly so. Wait a minute. I should be able to choose my own destiny. And thank you for trying to protect me, but I don't need protecting, or I'll choose myself.
Right.
I thought it was... I liked that decision he made. I like how she handled it. It made for a nice story arc. So, yeah, I was very happy with that.
Okay. All right. So this kind of leads me into my third topic.
Okay.
That I wanted. The Fantastic Forward.
Yes.
Get it? Fantastic Forward?
I get,
right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And so this is, of course, the all the developments with Rose becoming the Bad Wolf and leading up to the Doctor's regeneration forward into the 10th Doctor.
Yes.
Which is why I went that. So we have Rose now back on Earth, told by the Doctor to essentially let the TARDIS die. There's nothing you can do. Rose isn't ready to give up on that just yet. And she gets a little petulant, in my opinion. Especially when, everybody's telling her, like, her mom and Mickey are just like, hey, look, we have this everyday lifestyle. Why do you think you're better and you can't have that? And which I thought was a good point to make. Yeah. But Rose just kind of totally tunes that out, and she's like, okay, I'm not ready to give up, and she comes up with a plan. And that plan, of course, is to rip open the TARDIS hood and stare into the heart of the TARDIS. She has no clue what that will do to her.
No. Charles, she doesn't have the best plan.
No, and she's obviously reacting very emotionally.
Yes, but I do...
I mean, as all she knows, that thing could have fried her. Totally.
Absolutely. I do like the idea... It is often...
Or they could have caused this big explosion that could have detonated all of London by ripping open the TARDIS console.
Often people want to tell you that, you have dreams of
right,
delusions.
Delusions of grandeur. Yeah.
And
to quote Han Solo.
Yeah, and I like the idea that she does want to do more, and she does believe in herself, and that she. So I like that decision. I like that she wanted to do this. I think
so. You don't think it's coming out. So you don't think it's coming out of a selfish desire to be with her wannabe boyfriend?
But I don't necessarily. I think it's more than just I want to be with my boyfriend. She wants that life. She wants more than just.
Right.
Going to work,
being a shop girl.
Yeah. And so there is a fine line between being ambitious and being kind of a jerk. And I took this as she was truly ambitious, not maybe career-wise, but as I want to have a better life, and I want to do more with my life. So I thought that was okay with her. I kind of, and Rose is not my favorite companion, but I liked how she handled this, and I was happy with it.
All right, fair enough. Now she obviously looking to the time vortex.
Yeah.
She ends up becoming the Bad Wolf, which is essentially, it's almost like if you're an X-Men fan, kind of like her Dark Phoenix moment. Mm-hmm. Where she becomes this very powerful entity, and she's able to go. Suddenly, she's able to bring the TARDIS back into the future to Satellite 5, returning at the exact same part or moment where she needs to. She steps out, glowing with energy. The Doctor freaks out, understandably.
Mm-hmm.
And she's talking, basically takes out the Daleks, showing off essentially like some omnipotence as a result. She has this vast power to just wipe them out of existence. And then she scatters the words Bad Wolf throughout time to kind of lead her to to where she is now. So it's almost circular in this. And I kind of thought about this as like, wow, okay, Rose as the Bad Wolf is essentially a bootstrap paradox, isn't it?
Well, this was...
She mentioned that she says herself, I create myself.
This is kind of the first example of both Russell T. Davies and Stephen Moffat kind of in love with their own circular storytelling and bigger visions, and it is just it is the first time you see a dramatic beginning, and then 48 hours earlier, and
Right.
you cut back, you're like, oh, that's unique. And then after a while, you're like, really? We're going to do this
Yeah.
again? So,
I'm looking at you, Arrow.
yes. So I thought of that watching this, going, this was the first of many times Doctor Who wants to be clever with itself.
Right.
And
Little too clever for its own good, maybe.
yeah, and also, yeah, I don't know if it's a strong enough payoff, because I will be very candid with you.
Right.
I did not remember what Bad Wolf was specifically.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't really anything. It
Yeah.
was just we just found out that it's supposed to lead Rose to where she is, but it really doesn't. It's just
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that one moment
Mhm.
where she's like, "Oh yeah, Bad Wolf. That's kind of something."
Yeah.
But she has no idea what it means.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm right there with
So
you.
yeah, it's kind of like, well, it didn't really pay off, like as you said.
Yeah.
But obviously, this leads to the Doctor kissing Rose to suck the time energy out of her. And apparently he could have just held her hand, presumably, and done the same thing. But hey, why not?
Wouldn't have you?
Yeah.
So.
I guess the Doctor gets it.
Yes.
So interestingly, though, the time energy does not kill Rose, but it kills the Doctor, a Time Lord.
Okay.
Right,
if you wanna not.
All it does is give Rose. She's like, "Oh, my head hurts," but it ends up killing the Doctor rather quickly too.
And is that because he got it out of her in time?
I don't know. Well, I mean, presumably, yeah. That okay, it killed. That he sucked that out of her. But I'm thinking that Rose, being a mirror human, you would think she would have suffered from the effects a lot faster than a Time Lord, right?
Absolutely.
Especially one that's been traveling for hundreds of years and sucked up all this, these, time particles or whatever, and like with her tachyons or what have you.
Remind me a little bit of the kind of Donna. Oh, she can't remember, else she'll die. Kind of hand.
Yeah, a
wave.
little.
So,
It's like a hand wave.
yes,
Essentially.
it is. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So the Doctor, instead of Rose, dies from this time energy.
Right.
And he goes in the TARDIS. And this is, of course, the first regeneration of the modern era. So the Doctor has to kind of explain to Rose a little bit about what's going to happen.
Yes.
And she doesn't quite understand what he's talking about. He's talking about like, I'm going to have a new face. I might have two heads and stuff like that. Kind of like teasing, well, hey, anything could happen with this regeneration.
Yes.
So those of you upset at Jodie Whittaker becoming the Doctor, well, hey, they've already established this a little bit, already back with Christopher Eccleston's regeneration.
Yes. We've just recently talked about different regenerations and which ones are, come out the best. I will give a lot of credit to this one because I did not feel like the Doctor is being Mr. Exposition.
Right.
He truly is explaining to Rose what's going to happen. And it isn't one of those, well, as you know, Charles,
yes.
I didn't watch Doctor Who originally. Okay,
yeah, exactly.
You do know that. Why would you say that again, Jesse? This is truly, she has no idea what he's talking about.
Right.
And, and I like the way he put it. We Time Lords had a little trick. And it's going to be different. And then we get the first change, and then we have the 10th Doctor.
Yeah, then a very cool moment. Hair grows on the Doctor's head because, of course, with Eccleston's hair being so short,
right,
and has to fill out to Tennant's length. And he's just rubbing his teeth, going, "That's weird."
Yes.
And new teeth, that's weird.
Mhm.
And talks about like taking her. Oh yeah, that planet that my predecessor talked about, Barcelona. Yeah, why don't we go do that?
Yes.
But of course, they never end up getting there
No.
because we go into the Christmas invasion.
Yes.
Instead. But so yeah, we have a brand new Doctor, the very first regeneration. Now, I'm guessing this was the first time you had seen a regeneration, Jesse.
Yes.
So what was your reaction to this?
So I had understood the basic concept of regeneration. I had not embraced the greatness of it, but I kind of
Right.
understood that different actors played this same
Right.
character.
So you were ready going in.
I was ready,
You just-
and
okay. But what did you think once you finally saw it?
wow.
Do you remember? Yeah.
No, I don't. I think I was.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No.
sorry.
I think I was just like, okay, because back then, Ken had given me the 3 or 4 seasons in a row. Ken Schaefer, friend of the show.
Friend of the show, yeah.
So I was, how you binge watch and you're just like, okay, and these were DVDs, so I'm pulling out
Yeah.
the old one, putting in the next one as fast as I can.
Yeah.
So I think mine was just, okay, I want to get back to the next episode right away. I just want to move on to the next episode. I don't remember having strong feelings one way or another.
Oh, you were just more like, that happened, and then move right on to the next episode.
Yeah, not like, okay, that's kind of a cliffhanger. Okay, let me see what happens next. I
Okay.
think I viewed it more as a cliffhanger, and it
Okay.
wasn't a traumatic thing to me. And then, they had already announced Matt Smith before Tennant's, regeneration.
Right.
And so, but I watched it fairly soon after it happened, the Tennant regeneration. And
Yes.
then I was along with everyone else about Matt Smith's, and when he was leaving, I for the first time I enjoyed the trauma and, anxiousness of, I wonder who's going to be the new Doctor. So yeah, but
Okay.
and I remember falling in love with Tennant and not being that impressed with Eccleston. He was okay. It was enough, and it's like I said, going back, I really enjoy that and experience what he did. He really was interesting, and just like, Pertwee had to sell that it was the same character.
Right.
Eccleston had to bring new people in and former, classic Whovians to buy into that process. So he had a lot of heavy lifting to do, and he did it really well.
I totally agree. He did because he had to win people enough to keep continuing on with the show after he left, and then also he had to win over those old fans like myself.
Yeah.
And especially with interesting enough, he's doing it with a northern accent, this thick northern accent.
There's lots of Norse, right?
Yeah. Lots of planets have a north.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was another. Yeah, it was a lot of change for the show, but I think at this point, a lot of old fans like myself were just like, okay, we're just happy to be watching new Doctor Who.
Well, and I was a big fan of The Leftovers, and he was brilliant in that show and showed a lot of depth,
Right.
and a really character that at times was very unlikable and other times likable. So I've really been impressed with his acting, and so like I said, kind of missed potential, as you said, another season.
It would if we at least got to see Eccleston again in the Day of the Doctor, I think that would have helped.
Yes, I think so too.
But we've ranted about that quite a
Yes,
bit
we have.
before, so we don't need to go down that rabbit hole
No, we do not.
because we'll be here for another half an hour.
Yeah.
Just ranting about that. So I thought the regeneration, from my perspective, this was the first regeneration in the modern era. So It was a bit stunning for me because you had all of a sudden you had the Doctor with like this fire shooting out of his neckline and his hands, very violent eruption of energy, and that was obviously a change from what we had seen, like fans like myself had seen.
Yeah, because in the past, right, I was going to ask you that, and I'm glad you brought it up, because in the past it was just kind of partly because of special effects and partly because of the choice, right, that, you just kind of had this wavy, and all of a sudden you would transition from one phase to another. This one, it truly did look like a regeneration, almost an ignition, and this change. And it was, since I had not seen any classics, I didn't know this was a drastic change. I just thought, okay, that's a pretty cool, this is definitely a change.
Well, now that you've watched some of the classic regenerations, do you kind of understand why this one was a bit shocking?
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I think
not in a bad way.
No, but I think
I would stress that, but it was just different.
It set the tone for the modern era that a regeneration was something that it was significant.
Yeah, it made it more special.
Yeah, it was, and I think I don't remember, but I remember Ken talking once again that like, I just feel like changing my face, so I'm just going to change. One of the I think it's the Romanas.
Yeah, because Romana essentially changed her look. They explained the change in actress. Due to fashion, because she's like, oh, I like the form of the princess. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, and versus.
Because Lala Ward played both roles,
right?
Yes.
But this, I thought it was nice that it set the tone that this is a traumatic transformation. This is not just me getting home from work, taking off my dress slacks, my polo shirt, and putting on t-shirt and shorts. Right? This is something more than that.
It's a little more significant. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like the ultimate plastic surgery.
Yes,
let's just put it that way.
Indeed.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything else about this story before we move on to best lines?
I thought that it was, I've been on the record that at times I can get a little tired of Daleks.
Yes.
But this was a good Dalek story. I thought it was really.
Well, it's been a while since we've talked about the Daleks.
Yeah, it was nice to see that. I think it was a really. We're wrapping up our first season of the modern era. We're going to go all out with a good two-parter. We're going to give you tease you with a possible new companion, have her die tragically, fight the ultimate, Who villain. It's just a great way to end that first season.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, so this was the end of Doctor Who's first season. Back in 2005, so and then obviously we headed into a major era with the David Tennant era.
Yes,
starting with the Christmas invasion later that same year at Christmas. So big stuff. All right, best lines. I'll let you start off. Do you have any best lines this week?
I'm going to start with a short one. When the Doctor says, "You mind flirting outside?" And Jack, "I was just saying hello." And the Doctor, "For you, that's flirting."
Yeah, that was a good one. I like that one. I almost chose that one. But that's good. Okay, so obviously I kind of hinted at this line earlier, where we have Captain Jack talking to Susanna and Trin E. And he says, "Okay, defabricator. Does exactly what it says on the tin. Am I naked in front of millions of viewers?" Susanna and Trini reply enthusiastically, "Absolutely." And Captain Jack replies, "Ladies, your viewing figures just went up."
Yes, I love that line. It is so.
And he's all proud of it.
Yeah,
he's all proud of himself.
He is.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was great. So that is pure John Barrowman.
It is pure John Barrowman. Yes.
Not Captain Jack. Those lines blur so well.
Yes, they do. Yes.
Between reality and the fictional character with him.
Yeah.
He basically is Captain Jack Harkness.
My next line is actually, we discussed a little bit about Rose and her mom and Mickey talking about, we'll just be happy. And I love the way she says, no, I don't mean that. But it was a better life. I don't mean all the traveling and seeing aliens and spaceships and things. That doesn't matter. The doctor showed me a better way of living your life. He showed you too, talking to Mickey. You don't just give up. You don't just let things happen. You make a stand. You say no. You have the guts to do what's right when everyone else just runs away, and I just can't.
Right.
And
very nice.
And because ultimately, you and I believe, and we've talked about this many times, Doctor Who is about hope and doing the right thing, and for all, never give up, never surrender with all things to Galaxy Quest. I mean, this truly is, though, Doctor Who is about that. And so this summed it up very well, considering this is the first, season of the modern era. You can tell Russell T Davies got Doctor Who. He not only loved it, he understood what made Doctor Who special to us. Yeah,
I totally agree.
Okay.
All right. My next quotes I liked was this exchange between the Doctor and the Daleks, where we have the Daleks saying, "We have your associate. You will obey or she will be exterminated." And the Doctor replies, "No." The Dalek says, "Explain yourself." I said no. What is the meaning of this negative? It means no. But she will be destroyed? No, because this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to rescue her. I'm going to save Rose Tyler from the middle of the Dalek fleet, and then I'm going to save the Earth, and then, just to finish you off, I'm going to wipe every last stinking Dalek out of the sky. But you have no weapons, no defenses, no plan. Yeah, and doesn't that just scare you to death?
Yes,
Love
that was my other quote, and so I'm glad you did it. No, I agree. It just, and when he says Rose, and she goes, "Yes, Doctor, I'm coming to get you." Just it is.
That's a great one.
It is. Yes. It's so wonderful because, as he said, I love when the Doctor's
it's
back
so
against the wall. Oh yeah,
it's great. It's a great Doctor moment.
Yes, absolutely. Good.
Yeah. All right, I have one more last quote. Real quick.
Okay, good deal.
Okay. This is that very touching scene between the holographic Doctor and Rose Tyler in the TARDIS, where the hologram says, "This is Emergency Program 1. Rose, now listen, this is important. If this message is activated, then it can mean only one thing. We must be in danger, and I mean fatal. I'm dead or about to die any second with no chance of escape." And Rose is all, "No!" And the Doctor replies, "And that's okay. I hope it's a good death, but I promise to look after you, and that's what I'm doing. The TARDIS is taking you home." Rose is like, "I won't let you." And the Doctor replies, "And I bet you're fussing and moaning now. Typical. But hold on, and just listen a bit more. The TARDIS can never return for me. Emergency Program 1 means I'm facing an enemy that should never get their hands on this machine. So this is what you should do. Let the TARDIS die. Just let this old box gather dust. No one can open it. No one will even notice it. Let it become a strange little thing standing on a street corner. And over the years, the war will move on, and the box will be buried. And if you want to remember me, then you can do one thing. That's all. One thing. Have a good life. Do that for me, Rose. Have a fantastic life."
Perfect. Just so well done. Absolutely great.
That's cheers to Eccleston, because he totally sells these scenes.
He does. And he sells, we didn't quote, we kind of did at the beginning, but his final line when he goes, "You were fantastic and so was I."
Right. It's such a great send-off for his Doctor.
It is. Yeah. So very cool. All right, so I'm going to jump the gun. Charles, do you have a rating?
Yes. I do have a rating. Here, let me go first.
Yes, I'm going to let you go first this time.
I was going to rate this a little higher, but then I realized, well, we've had a lot of better stories since then. This one isn't aging quite as well.
Okay.
Because of things like, the bootstrap paradox and all that we've talked about. I give it 8.5. I liked it. I just, didn't think it was like as really perfect. 8.5 emergency program holograms.
So I gave it a little higher rating than you, and I think because I'm doing it on a curve.
Right.
I'm judging it as in where it is in context, the significance of it, the high expectations and how it delivered. So, I'm going to give it 9 new teeth.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Very
because
nice.
It for what it is and where it served, I think it is really well done, and
it's important. It's an important story.
It is, and certainly I do think Stephen Moffat's The Empty Child, and is I think the finest episode, and I think that really shows the beauty of what we could have gotten in another season from him.
Right.
But this is a well done of transitioning us to a new Doctor. So good stuff.
Yep, totally agree.
Okay.
All right.
So your reverse the polarity.
We're going to reverse the polarity. I'm going to try to do this quickly because we have a lot of feedback this week.
Oh, okay, nice.
So I'm going to reverse this polarity back to 1967 with The Evil of the Daleks.
Oh, okay.
And this is a very more little known these days. The 9th serial from season 4 in 1967, written by Terry Nation, and David Whittaker. Excuse me, David Whittaker. That created by Terry Nation, the Daleks were. So this is a second Doctor story.
Okay.
And so we start off. I'm going to try to do this quickly. In 1966, following the events of the previous story, The Faceless Ones, we have the second Doctor and Jamie. So right there, that should be a selling
Jamie.
point.
Yes.
Yep. Watching helplessly as the TARDIS is loaded onto a lorry and driven away. And the trail leads them to this antique shop run by a guy named Edward Waterfield, who sells Victorian-style antiques that seem like they're brand spanking new. So they investigate the store, end up getting succumbed to a booby trap that gasses them, and then they're dragged into a time machine by Waterfield. And they wake up to find that they've been transported to 1866 and are in the house of Theodore Maxtable, Waterfield's partner. And apparently we find out that the two have been trying to invent a time machine using mirrors and static electricity. I'm not quite sure how that works. But hey, this was from 1967. So when the Daleks emerged from their time cabinet, and they basically took Waterfield's daughter, Victoria. So this is the introduction of Victoria Waterfield, second Doctor companion.
Nice.
And so they force Waterfield to travel 1 century later to lure the Doctor into a trap by stealing the TARDIS. And the Daleks apparently want to they threaten to destroy the TARDIS. They've got the TARDIS, turns out. And they want to destroy it unless the Doctor helps them by conducting an experiment to isolate the human factor. Now this is essentially turns out to be a trick by the Daleks, because they want to figure out a way to totally eliminate the human factor. And the Doctor thinks, well, hey, I can make the Daleks human. So the Doctor ends up getting tricked. But they go through this series of events. They end up going to Skaro later in the episode. And the reason I bring mention this story is because the trio go into the Dalek city and are brought before the Dalek Emperor. So this is the first time we see the Emperor Dalek, which was featured in the Parting of the Ways.
Yes.
So this is the first time we get him, and so he reveals that the reason behind the experiments was, that they wanted to isolate a Dalek factor as a result, and make the Daleks even more relentless killing machines.
Okay.
Of course. So essentially we go through a series of events, And Edward Waterfield throws himself in front of a black Dalek blast meant for the Doctor. So Edward dies, and the Doctor makes a promise to Victoria that Victoria will be taken care of, just kind of like the promise that the Ninth Doctor made to Jackie Tyler, that Rose would be taken care of. And Edward Waterfield dies content. The Emperor ends up attacked by these human Daleks that the Doctor had created earlier in the story. And the Doctor tells Jamie, hey, after it's all settled, that we're going to take the newly orphaned Victoria along on their travels. So they're going to bring her along because she has nowhere else to go. And they watch the Dalek City in flames. The Doctor says, well, this is the end of the Daleks. Well, guess what? It's not the end of the Daleks because, of course, we see a pulsating light coming from the Dalek Emperor at the end of the story, indicating that the Daleks are still alive.
Yes. Very nice.
So
very cool.
This one's a little harder to find because it's it's a 7-parter. 6 parts are missing on video, but all the audio exists. So if you can track down the audio, we're released on CD for The Evil of the Daleks, it's definitely worth checking out.
All right, very good.
And one part is you could track that down on the the Doctor Who Lost in Time DVD set.
Okay, very cool.
So if you want to see some actual footage from that story, it hasn't been released on a reconstructed DVD yet. Hopefully it will be at some point.
Okay.
Hopefully in animation. That would be nice.
That would be very nice. Well, cool.
All right. So yeah, I definitely recommend that story.
All right. So you say that a couple people gave us feedback.
Yeah, we got quite a bit of feedback this week. Now, one is some audio that from Christine from Michigan.
Hey guys, Christine from Michigan, also from the Roadside Attractions podcast. I've noticed something with Doctor Who fans. They all tend to say that their first Doctor was their Doctor, the first one they came across. Well, I started the show with the New Era, which would technically make my Doctor Eccleston, but I wouldn't claim him as my Doctor. I have 2 favorites, actually. Tennant became my favorite after a while. The regeneration process for him confused me, and it was a little iffy having the new Doctor not really in the episode very much. But eventually he grew on me and became one of my favorites. However, when Matt Smith came along, he had me at fish sticks and custard. Now I wonder if I'm one of the rare people out there whose first Doctor isn't their Doctor. And on another note, I've noticed this odd phrasing that Doctor Who fans like to use. My Doctor. They don't say their favorite Doctor, they say my Doctor, which is really odd, especially when you consider that people don't say my companion. They will have a favorite companion, but it's not their companion. And it's not always the first companion, or the second, or really the same with anybody. While there may be several people who Tennant is their favorite Doctor, their favorite companion will vary. I wonder if you guys had any thoughts on this.
Wow, wasn't that a great audio?
Yes, it was. No, I really appreciate it. It is nice. We certainly can read your emails and we can read your tweets, but it is nice when you take time to send us a message. So thank you. And yes, I really appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, and especially for Christine, who has a lovely voice, I should say.
Absolutely.
Because as it turns out, hey, don't you know her from another podcast?
I do. Christine does not only the Game of Thrones podcast with me, Small Council Matters, but she also does the Roadside Attractions, American Gods. And Ken and I actually talked about this at lunch. Gosh, Ken got 3 shout-outs this time.
Yeah.
And I think she asks a good question. Why do you say it's my Doctor versus just my favorite Doctor? And
she actually asked us 2 questions.
Yes.
She asked, because she mentions that she's kind of the exception to the first Doctor is your favorite Doctor rule.
Yes.
And then she wants to know why my Doctor, people say my Doctor and not my companion.
Yes. So
let's tackle the first question. So the first she's asking, okay, why is it like if you start watching Eccleston you end up like a David Tennant fan.
Now, part of this, we feel that it's the doctor you spend the most time with when you begin. You know, we've kind of made that assessment. Like, Eccleston was the first one I watched, but I really spent a lot of time with Tennant, so therefore Tennant becomes my favorite doctor. You know, you caught the very end of Tom Baker's time, and then you spent Davidson, so he became your doctor. Ken, for example, started watching Baker very early and watched tons of Baker episodes, so that became his doctor. So I think that's a valid theory.
Right. And I think of that when the case of Eccleston, as we talked about earlier in the episode here, because he only had the one season.
Yes.
There wasn't really. It didn't feel like there was enough time with Eccleston to get that attachment. I know some fans consider him their favorite, but by and large, and I know this because my wife Lori is kind of this way.
Yeah.
And you are, so that's two people I know right there.
Yeah.
That even though they watched Eccleston first, they latched onto Tennant because Tennant they had 4 years with him. And were able to get that, they were able to go through that period of well, I don't know if I'm going to like this guy. Okay, I guess I can kind of like this guy. I really don't want this guy to go.
Well, and
cycle.
Yeah, I think as wonderful as Paul McGann has been, especially in the Big Finish audios,
right?
With only the one movie plus the audios,
right?
It's you don't hear a lot of people saying he's their favorite doctor, even though we all like him. And in that little bitty clip, the little mini episode Day of the Doctor, before the 50th anniversary,
unless they're really heavy into Big Finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the way I kind of look at that issue, that exception. So so that's my take. Yeah.
So
now the other question.
Yeah.
My doctor. Why do people say my doctor when it comes to their favorite doctor and not my companion when it comes to their favorite companion?
Right.
So what's your thoughts on that?
So I think partly my answer was because early in fandom that started being said, and that kind of, it's like you say Merry Christmas instead of Happy Christmas in the U.S.
Right.
It's how everyone says it. And Ken's theory, like I said, we talked about this at lunch, is because in the U.S. especially, it was a very personal, passionate fandom. A lot of people superhero fans, a lot of people Star Trek fans, but it was hard to find Doctor Who on your PBS station. And,
yes, it was.
And by finding,
testify, my brother.
Yeah, this was something. It was not easy to be a Doctor Who fan, and so you kind of developed this personal, almost passionate about it, and became something very personal. So that's why Ken thought that it came up, at least from American fans, it's my doctor, because there was such a personal connection to that person who played the role. So what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, and I think this is a great question.
Oh, I agree. I think it's a wonderful question.
It's a great question. So my thoughts are that the Doctor being the lead character in the series, he's the one you're devoting the most attention to.
Yes.
The companions are more transitory.
Yeah.
They leave the show more frequently than the Doctor, traditionally.
Right.
Eccleston's kind of a rare exception because Rose actually lasted longer than he did.
Yeah.
But by and large, again, companions, especially in the modern era, they don't seem to last very long. They're maybe around for a season at best or more.
Right.
We've only had a couple exceptions like Amy Pond or Clara Oswald.
Right.
Rose had a couple seasons, but for the most part, they're in and out pretty quickly. Donna Noble lasted one season.
Right.
Bill was around for one season.
Yeah, Martha one season.
Martha one season. So
Yeah.
in a few episodes, but yeah. So yeah, it's just I think that the companions, you don't get as much of an attachment to them because they're in and out so fast.
So why do you think?
And they're not the lead character. That's my reasoning.
And so the other question we had is, we tend to not say, well, Kirk is my captain. We say, you know,
in Star Trek, yeah.
Yeah, Kirk, that's it. You know, the other thing is you would say Kirk is my favorite Star Trek captain, or Picard is my favorite Star Trek captain, or Cisco, or Janeway, whoever it is.
Yeah. Now because people do have favorite companions.
They do, and they say my favorite Star Trek captain is. But I think the other thing is,
but there's not that sense of ownership.
Yeah, and it's also, I think it's partly because it's it's kind of cool to say, well, my doctor, because that means you're almost in this secret club, right? Yeah. Because I'm not saying I'm
a Tenet fan, so you go hey,
my favorite
so you can bond with all the Tenet fans.
And you just said, when I said we don't say my captain, you filled in like in Star Trek. Now you knew what I was talking about, but most people would think you're not. So you would say, well, my favorite Star Trek captain is, or my favorite Power Ranger, or whatever your thing. But there is something I think very personal about your favorite lead actor in this series, and you do feel like it is your doctor. And I've told the story before when I was at Dragon Con a few years, and they were going to show Asylum of the Daleks, and there was 700, 800 people all in the theater in this big auditorium. They're going to show it, and the guy kind of says, okay, I want everyone to scream who's your favorite doctor on 3. And he said, I knew it would be mass. You couldn't pick out one voice because there would be so many different. He says, and that just makes me so happy because everyone is that passionate about their doctor. Right. And I think any Doctor Who fan, and I hate to sound like a Doctor Who snob, but I think any true fan won't say, well, I really don't have a favorite doctor. I just like the show. I think almost everyone has a favorite doctor. Don't you agree?
There may be some like a couple of exceptions.
Yeah.
But I've never come across that.
Yeah.
If it would have to be someone that's not that into the show.
Yes. Because we have been very much on the record that all the doctors have their own unique positives and shortkomings, but we all appreciate them each in their own way, and they bring something special.
I love all the doctors.
Right, absolutely.
Even the least favorite ones, like Colin Baker or Paul McGann or what have you.
Yes.
That William Hartnell, whatever. So that they're all great. They're just they're great in different ways, like you said.
Exactly. Very nice.
All right.
Cool.
All right. So Christine, that was a couple of fantastic questions.
Awesome. And we appreciate it. And yes,
so
you
Christine,
can.
I want to hear more questions from you because that was really good.
Yes, and you can hear Christine on Next Stop. We should have her on this show. She does do Small Council Matters, the Game of Thrones podcast we do, and she'll get ready for the American Gods podcast, which we should have you guest star on sometimes when the new season comes on.
I would love to do that because I'm a big American Gods fan.
Yes, you are. Okay, that'd be great.
So yeah, we had to do a little crossover.
Yes, we should.
So we should have Christine on this show.
Yes.
And I'll go on Roadside Attractions.
All right, very nice.
Go. So Christine, if you've got a favorite story you'd like to review here on Next Stop Everywhere, drop us a line. I'd love to know what you like.
Absolutely.
So we can review it. Okay, so let's move on to some other feedback. These are emails. David K. Proctor writes in, have either of you checked out BritBox for all of your classic Doctor Who needs? And I'm thinking this is a question because of, like whether we have certain episodes. Because we talked about hey, you need to go to Ken or whatever to get certain stories.
Okay.
So I think maybe David's trying to help you out.
Well, that's nice.
So now, speaking for myself, David, I have all the stories. Every I'm that obsessed. Okay, it's taken some investment over the years. Totally worth it though, in my opinion. I have bought every DVD that was released. So I've got every available story that's out on DVD. I have audios for the stories that aren't out on DVD because they were not completed. So, and as you know, of course, new episodes come in before they're released on Blu-ray or what have you. I record them somehow, so I have them available. So, so at least in the Skaggs household, Doctor Who is always available.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a little. I mean, I'm not trying to be smug. I'm just saying that's. I've got the library. Let's just put it that way.
Very cool.
So, but Jesse, of course, like he's got a lot himself.
Yes.
But sometimes we have to like go to Ken Schaefer, who's probably as much
also
of
like you has
also
yes.
like me. Yes.
Yes.
So condolences to Ken.
He has to because him and Parker are going through every episode.
Exactly.
Yes.
But it comes in handy because if we want to reference something, I can always consult their library, I guess.
Absolutely.
All right. So thanks for that, David. Holly Mack writes in. So Holly from Wisconsin.
Yay.
Hey, guys. Forgot how much I enjoyed these 2 episodes, referring, of course, to Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways. Interesting twist of the reality TV shows and game shows in general. When I first watched this, I was surprised by the plot twist at the end of Bad Wolf with the Daleks showing up. Parting of the Ways, we finally find out who Bad Wolf is. Rose looking into the eye of the TARDIS to save Jack after his heroic deed against the Daleks, and not even sure it worked, was a dramatic touch that the Doctor, and then the Doctor has to part ways with Rose by regenerating and getting introduced to a new Doctor at the very end of the episode. This is a great 2-parter and one that stands the test of time in the rewatch category. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin.
Thank you, Holly. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Holly.
Very nice.
Yeah, that was a good point that we didn't talk about, is that Jack is brought back from the dead and stuck on Satellite 5 because the Doctor just decides, well, okay, I'm dying. I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And doesn't even think to check if Jack's alive or not.
No.
He's just like, okay, Rose, into the TARDIS, bye. So I thought that was kind of a dick move on the Doctor's part, but that's me.
Absolutely.
But he was dying, so I guess I'll have to let that slide.
Yeah. A little
All
bit.
right. A little bit. Just a little bit. Last of our feedback is, of course, Paul from Australia, who writes in, hi, Charles and Jesse. Wow, I cannot believe it's been 12 years since these episodes, and what a great way to finish the new season of New Who. To begin with, Bad Wolf had so much TV pop culture references in it, what with Big Brother and the Weakest Link, to name 2. I thought it was interesting that the Ninth Doctor's good deeds in the long game resulted in the decline of the human race's development. That was another point we didn't bring up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're absolutely right there. Yeah, you kind of hit the fail button on that one. I laugh every time Captain Jack reveals that being nude in front of millions of viewers, and where was he hiding that laser pistol? Well, I think that's pretty obvious, isn't it, Paul?
And I think that is so funny.
Yeah.
That is something. Thank you, Paul. I
Where
did
were
love
you
that.
hiding that?
Once again, very Barrowman. Very
Yeah,
Barrowman.
Yeah, it's pure him.
Yes.
As for the Daleks, we finally get to see them in all their glory. More Daleks than we've ever seen, thanks to the glorious CGI.
Absolutely.
As for the Parting of the Ways, finally we're rewarded with the answer to the Bad Wolf puzzle, and Rose's actions creating a predestination paradox, or as I like to call it, the bootstrap paradox.
Yes.
With the term left through time. We see Linda with Y and Jack die, only for Jack to be brought back to life by a powered-up Rose. Sad for Linda, as she looked like she would have made a great companion.
Yes.
So I guess Rose's animosity toward Linda kind of carried through, and she didn't bother resurrecting her.
No,
or
she
anybody,
didn't.
or anybody else.
Right.
Thanks, Rose. Thanks, Bad Wolf.
Yeah, exactly.
And finally, we got the end of Great Regeneration that still gets you emotional every time you watch it. Such a fantastic way to end the first season. I see what you did there, Paul, with fantastic. 2 small points I found interesting while doing a bit of research. Yes, even the old school guy has to brush up on his who. The first thing I thought was interesting was that the Emperor Dalek's final words, "I cannot die," are the same words said by Davros at the end of Resurrection of the Daleks. You're absolutely right about that. And secondly, the Doctor's line, "I'm coming to get you," as in Rose, "I'm coming to get you," is a direct quote from the host of Big Brother UK, Davina McCall, to contestants every time they're about to be evicted from the show. As she says, "We're coming to get you."
Yes.
From the show. So he thought that was interesting. Sorry about the length of this email. Kindest regards always, Paul. P.S. Bring on the next regeneration.
Yay. That is a wonderful segue. But yeah, thank you, Paul. I appreciate that.
Yep, thanks for setting us up because, yes, next time on Next Stop Everywhere, we're talking about the end of time.
Nice.
The final story of the David Tennant era, at least until he turns back up on the Day of the Doctor. But this is the kind of 2-part, the End of Time and the End of Time Part 2 from end of 2008 and beginning New Year's Day of 2009. And looking forward to talking about this one with you, Jesse, because obviously as a Tennant fan, this is a big deal for you.
Yes, I have rewatched this one a couple of times. I'm looking forward to rewatching it again. And we'll talk more because there's a lot of discussions about the kind of greatest hits tour that we will discuss.
Right. Right.
But
the farewell tour.
Yes. Yeah.
Of the 10th Doctor.
Absolutely. It started that kind of thought. So yes, absolutely. Well, and so if we have other listeners that want to join the Cool Kids giving us feedback, How can they, Charles?
Well, obviously we got a lot of these people. We're going to have to this is great hearing from everybody.
Absolutely.
If you want to be like the Cool Kids, drop us a line at nextstopeverywheresmg@gmail.com. That's nextstopeverywheresmg
yes.
at gmail.com. Don't forget the SMG, kids. And or you can reach us on the Twitter machine at nextstopsmg. See how this works?
Yes.
Or on our Facebook page, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. We'd love to have you like us and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And please tell your friends about us. We would definitely appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And Jesse, where can they reach you on the interwebs?
So I can be reached at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. You can hear me ramble on about music at Set Lusting Bruce on this fine network.
Yes.
And we just finished recording our last Game of Thrones podcast, so that's out there. And
at least until next season.
Yes.
Not the very last one.
No, the last one for this one. Though we are talking about in January kind of doing some rewatching, so we'll see from there.
Okay.
And I am on Facebook as well, Jesse Jackson. You can read all about my 40th high school reunion and talk about that. Charles, how about yourself? Where can they find you?
Well, as always, I'm on the Twitter machine at Charles Skaggs, or on the Instagram at Charles Skaggs, or you can find me at Google Plus for all you crazy kids in the Google Plus, or Facebook at Charles Skaggs.
And I believe you do a little blog.
Yeah. It's this blog you may have heard of.
Damn good coffee and hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. Where I talk about Next Stop Everywhere, and Doctor Who, and Torchwood, and all kinds of comics and sci-fi goodness. And then, of course, my other 2 podcasts that I do for Southgate Media Group, the Phantom Zone podcast that I do with friend of the show, Karen Lindsay, and Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Zan Sprouse, wife of comic book artist Chris Sprouse, and where we discuss all things Twin Peaks, and are now discussing the music from the series.
Oh, nice!
Now that the series has ended, they released a new soundtrack and a score. We just recorded the soundtrack, so we got to talk about a lot of great artists. that appeared in season 3 of Twin Peaks.
We should talk to Charles about. We should talk to Rob about releasing that on Set Lusting Bruce as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's a music theme. I think that would be really good.
Okay.
Yeah, so
we can do that.
Yeah,
we can do that. So once the episode's posted, you can listen to it, see what you think.
Yeah, I look forward to that, and I think
we actually talk a little music.
Yes, that'd be perfect to add that as a cross things. That's great.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's a good idea. So yeah, everybody. Before we get to Jesse's final quote, come on back for episode 97, The End of Time.
Yes, of course. I'm left quoteless, so I didn't think about it. Yes, so I'm going to end with I
have to play this for you, Jesse.
Yes. I'm gonna the screen door slams, Mary's dress sways.
Yeah.
By the way, I am on the.
Well, here.
Let's you got a quote for me?
I have another quote from the episode. That
okay, perfect.
Read. Okay, so our quote is from the Doctor. You know what they call me in the ancient legends of the Dalek homeworld? The oncoming storm. You might have removed all your emotions, but I reckon right deep in your DNA there's one little spark left, and that's fear. Doesn't it just burn when you face me?
Perfect. And I do love that. So thank you, Charles, for bailing me out. I appreciate it as always.
I always got your back.
You are truly a wonderful companion on this part of the ride, which is a Springsteen quote. So thank you, Charles. Thank you, listeners. Keep hope alive. And we will see you shortly to talk about my doctor's regeneration.
There you go.
See you later.
I see what you did there.
Yes, indeed. Bye.
Bye, everyone. So do we want to insert that audio here?
Yes, we will. I will. I have downloaded it.
Work your magic.
I will work my magic. Yes. So.
All right.
Insert
so let's just,
here.
Yeah. So we'll just pretend that we've listened to it.
Yes.
And okay. So